Those whose way is blameless, who walk in the Lord's instruction, are truly happy. Those who guard God's laws are truly happy. They seek God with all their hearts. They don't even do anything wrong. They walk in God's ways. God, you have ordered that your decrees should be kept most carefully. How I wish my ways were strong when it comes to keeping your statutes. Then I wouldn't be ashamed when I examine all your commandments. I will give thanks to you with a heart that does right as I learn your righteous rules. I will keep your statutes. Please don't leave me alone. Reading from the Gospel of Matthew, the 5th chapter, beginning with the 21st verse. You have heard that it was said to those who lived long ago, "Don't commit murder," and all who commit murder will be in danger of judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with their brother or sister will be in danger of judgment. And if they say to their brother or sister, "You idiot," they will be in danger of being condemned by the governing council. And if they say, "You fool," they will be in danger of fiery hell. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift at the altar and go. First make things right with your brother or sister and then come back and offer your gift. Be sure to make friends quickly with your opponents while you are with them on the way to court. Otherwise, they will haul you before the judge, and the judge will turn you over to the officer of the court, and you will be thrown into prison. I say to you in all seriousness that you won't get out of there until you've paid the very last penny. You have heard that it was said, "Don't commit adultery." But I say to you that every man who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery in his heart. And if your right eye causes you to fall into sin, tear it out and throw it away. It's better that you lose a part of your body than that your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to fall into sin, chop it off and throw it away. It's better that you lose a part of your body than that your whole body go into hell. And it was said, "Whoever divorces his wife must give her a divorce certificate." But I say to you that whoever divorces his wife except for sexual unfaithfulness forces her to commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, you have heard that it was said to those who lived long ago, "Don't make a false solemn pledge, but you should follow through on what you have pledged to the Lord." But I say to you that you must not pledge at all. You must not pledge by heaven because it's God's throne. You must not pledge by the earth because it is God's footstool. You must not pledge by Jerusalem because it's the city of the great King. And you must not pledge by your head because you can't turn one hair black or white. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one. This is the word of the Lord.
The Lord's name be praised.
Okay, so is anyone else as annoyed, confused, and tired as I am of hearing about false or fake news? I mean, as a kid, I remember that people who made up stories based on few facts were called gossips, and I wasn't supposed to do that. Now it's all over the news. You know, and I thought that news reporters were supposed to double and triple check their facts, but nowadays any old celebrity could say something and they're considered an expert. I don't know, I don't get this much. It doesn't make me very happy, and yet I understand it. It is part of our human nature. Since time began, it seems like, we humans have wanted to understand things. And so when faced with limited facts, we've expanded upon them. We've made up story around them, made assumptions about what those facts meant. It's happened throughout time. So why should I be so surprised that I'm seeing things that are sort of questionable showing up and then being discussed on the news? I can tell you I've been unhappy with news reports for some time, and the way they take and only tell you part of the truth. I can give you an example. Back in 2009, remember after the economy tanked? There were some news reports out there about how our health insurance rates were going up. Yeah, y'all remember that? They were going way up. And there was a report in the paper that these insurance rates were going up. People were being asked to pay much higher premiums. And by the way, did you know these insurance companies had these big reserves? And I'm sitting there going, yeah? Tell me the rest of the story. Because there is a rest of the story. I was chairperson of the Conference Board of Pensions and Health Benefits at that time. We had had a good claims year in 2008, expected low increases in 2009, and got a big one. So we asked why. Well, like everybody else, the insurance company had lost money due to the economic downturn and the loss of value in stocks where they had their reserves. And by the way, do you know they're required by the government to keep those reserves and they have a minimum amount? So to me, reading this story, it was like, okay, you've told me rates are going up, you've told me they have reserves, but you haven't told me what they're required to have in the reserves. You know, those reserves are for our protection so that those policies can be paid out. And yet most people read that story and went, well, they have all this money and they're charging us more. They are just greedy so-and-sos, aren't they? No, we only learned half the story. We don't know whether they were greedy or not. So while most people were angry at the insurance companies for increasing rates, I was angry at the newspaper at not telling me what was going on. That's what happens. We take one or two facts and we think we understand a situation and we draw conclusions based on it, and we don't have all the information we need. It's been going on for years. And it's something Jesus faced, and it's an important part of our scripture today. If you remember, Jesus is out on the hillside talking to a large group of Jewish people, and he has told them that they are salt of the earth that gives flavor and liveliness to light. They are light of the world that shine in the darkness as long as they do what God has asked them to do, to seek justice, to love mercy, to walk humbly with God, as long as they obey the commandments. But then Jesus turns around and says to them, you think I came to overrule the commandments, but I didn't. I came to fulfill them, or as I like to say, he came to fill them out, flesh them out for us. Because you see, we were taking a basic commandment and we were understanding it in a certain way without understanding God's will that was behind that commandment. And so we end up with a bunch of hearsay right here in the Bible. See, I told you it wasn't new. As Jesus starts in, you have heard it said, don't commit murder. You've all heard that too, right? It's one of the 10 commandments. Don't commit murder. And Jesus says, but you're just looking at this little act of murder. You're not looking at the intent of the law, and you're not understanding the truth of the matter. which is murder does not start with somebody waking up in the morning and saying, I'm going to go slit somebody's throat. It has a beginning somewhere. It has a beginning in thoughts. It has a beginning in actions that lead to more actions. You don't just wake up and go shoot a bunch of kids on a playground or shoot up people sitting in a movie theater watching a movie. No, it happens over time. There are events that lead up to it. And so Jesus says, you're not understanding what you've heard. You don't have the full story. So I say to you, anyone who is angry with their brother and sister is in danger of judgment. Anyone who calls them you idiot is in danger of being condemned. Anyone who calls them a fool is in danger of fiery hell. My gosh, wait a minute, Jesus? Isn't that a little harsh for being angry, for calling somebody names? Well, yes, he's saying. Exactly, that's exactly what I mean. Because the act of murder, acts of death and destruction begin in our attitudes. So when we get angry, when we discredit people, when we call them names and discount them and treat them as unimportant, yes, we are sowing the seeds of murder. So be careful about your attitude, he says. Be careful because it leads to bad places. And then he picks up another one of the 10 Commandments. You have heard it said, don't commit adultery. Okay, we all understand what that means, we think. I know there were some news stories, been back a few years, where there was debate, but anyway. But I say to you that every man who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery in their heart. See, it starts with an attitude. As a pastor who has talked to couples, who has had to counsel with couples, I can tell you, you just don't go out one day and decide to commit adultery. It starts with, oh, I need some help from a friend at work. Oh, you're so big and you're so strong. Oh, you're so nice to me. Oh, gosh, you're so good looking too. And, it goes on and on, flirting and various things. And you feel good because someone likes you. And your ego gets stroked. And pretty soon you find yourself in a closet going, what am I doing? I love my wife. It starts out when we start messing around where we shouldn't be. When we start saying things and responding to things that we shouldn't respond to. When we start having this attitude that I'm not doing anything wrong, it's just a little pornography. Well, if it ruins your relationship, yes, you are. That's what Jesus wants us to understand. It all starts somewhere. Our attitude informs our actions. So just don't even go down that road. And then he goes on to talk about divorce. And he says, you've heard it said that you can write a certificate of divorce for your wife. No, you can't. Not unless you have a good reason, because once again, it's about building up relationships and maintaining those relationships and not discounting anybody, not discrediting anybody, not going down that road. For a woman in Jesus' day to be divorced was deadly. She needed a man to protect her. He says, before you go destroying her life, you'd better make sure that your marriage is already destroyed. So he gives one reason only, and that's a brokenness in the marriage that leads to indiscretion. Before you go ruining people's lives, before you go causing hurt and pain, think about what you're doing. If the relationship isn't broke, then don't break it. And he keeps going. Law from the book of Leviticus. Don't be swearing falsely. That's what you've heard it said. Don't say, as God is my witness, I'm going to do this, and then not do it. That's what the law says. And he goes, no, that's not what the law means. You don't need to swear by God, by heaven, by the earth, by even the hairs on your head, which you cannot turn black or white because you can't control it. Live with integrity. Make your yes, yes, and your no, no. You don't need to go around trying to convince somebody of your honesty or integrity by swearing by anything, God or anything else. Relationships. We know that Jesus tells us that there are two main commandments: to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. Those involve relationship. Those involve not saying somebody doesn't matter, not calling them names, not discrediting them, not throwing them out of your life for no reason, but rather working to establish and maintain relationships. Today we celebrate individuals who know how to establish and maintain relationships. And it's not that Jesus is saying this is easy. Oh no, he's saying it's quite difficult. And that's why he throws in all this stuff about you're going to go to hell if you call somebody a name. Or you'd better cut off your hand if it offends you and causes you to sin. Those are pretty extreme punishments. And it's not that he wants you to literally do these things, but he wants you to quit taking those commandments literally and start recognizing the will of God for us that lies behind those commandments. What is the reason God told us to do these things? Don't kill, don't murder. Why? Because it breaks relationships. It causes harm and destroys life. Don't commit adultery. Why? Because it breaks relationships, it causes harm, and it destroys lives. Don't even sit there swearing when you don't mean it and it doesn't matter. Live your life according to God's commandments with some honesty and some integrity. When people come to me and say, I don't know what to do, and I tell them, well, can you look at yourself in the mirror in the morning? If you can't face other people after doing something and you can't face yourself, then maybe you need to rethink what you're doing. Attitude informs action and can lead to deadly places, dangerous places. You know I have been bad about discounting people. I know. I knew that there were radicals in Saudi Arabia and Afghanistan and the Middle East who hated America. They were far away. Who cares? How sad. How terrible that they've twisted their religion that way, things like that. And then they got hold of some planes and flew them into some buildings. I discounted them. I might as well have called them names. I ignored them. I didn't understand where they were coming from, and therefore I didn't understand what they were going to do or how to stop it. I was wrong. I got to tell you, when I ran into this guy, Donald Trump, who was in charge of this TV show called Celebrity Apprentice, I thought, wow, he's sort of rude and crude and greedy, isn't he? To be honest, I hate all shows like that anyway, so, you know. I discounted him. I ignored him. He's my president now. I need to take him seriously. I need to listen to him and pay attention to what he says. Because what he says and does has an effect on me and my family and all of us. He's now the leader of one of the most powerful nations in the world. I was wrong. I was wrong to ignore him as just some dumb celebrity. How many others discredited him? How many others ignored him? Can't ignore him now. If we do not build relationships, we lay the path for destruction. if we continue to take things literally without learning the whole story, we lay the path for not having relationships. You know, whether you're a Trump lover or a Trump hater, guess what? If you point fingers, call each other names, and get angry according to God, you might end up condemned or in hell. You lay the foundation of death and destruction. And when you ignore the Syrian refugee or the terrorist in Afghanistan, guess what? You might find a few things destroyed in your country, along with some people. We've got to start getting the whole story. We've got to move beyond the bare facts of what we read. We've got to start taking things so literally and start understanding what is behind them. And it is not easy to understand the mind of God and the will of God. And it's not easy to build those relationships because it's too easy to ignore the people that aren't right here in front of us. You know, Jesus said just before I started reading earlier today, I say to you that unless your righteousness is greater than the righteousness of the legal experts and the Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. The Pharisees and the legal experts, oh, they do it all according to the law, literally everything. We don't kill, we don't commit adultery, we don't swear falsely, we don't do all these things. And Jesus says, but we have got to do it better. Because righteousness comes not from obeying the letter of the law, but obeying the intent of the law. And God is calling us to a higher standard because that's how we become light. That's how we bring about the kingdom of God in this world. That's how we help God heal our creation, His creation, where we live and must reside. You gotta understand, you gotta go deeper. Thomas Long, a famous Presbyterian preacher as well as theologian, writes in his commentary on the book of Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, the followers of Jesus are called to a different kind of righteousness, a righteousness that seeks to be ever expressive of the merciful, forgiving, reconciling will of God that lies at the center of the law. We got to do it better. We got to do it better because if we only go as far as the law calls us to go, who knows what damage we will do. We can be light of the world, but we got to obey those commandments in a different way. We are better than we think we are. We are called to be people that want the whole story. And Jesus is willing to give it to us. Amen.